Fitness Pro Mentor community, welcome to another episode of the Fitness Pro Mentors podcast. We are committed to helping trainers like you 2 to 3x their business. And as such, I'm very excited to introduce one of our students, but also someone who's a badass fitness professional with an amazing gym, the owner of the gym at Prospect, Mr. Dan Greenbaum. Dan, how you doing today?
Doing good, guys.
Awesome. Dan, I'm super excited to have you because you are also a green.
Yeah, exactly.
I was Green Spoon, and we brought it down to Green because we're lazy, but you kept the long name.
Get the whole thing, man.
Get the whole thing. I love it. Cool. So, Dan, how's your day going so far?
It's good so far. Typically busy most of the time, but it's always good. End of the week, a little tired. Always have big things to do each week, so it's kind of one of those things where it doesn't really stop just because it's Friday. So trying to just keep on plugging away till the end of the day.
Well, Dan, I appreciate you making time for what we're doing here today. I really appreciate it. For anyone who's unfamiliar with Dan, Dan is the founder of the gym at Prospect, which is in Colorado. It's a 7,000 square foot gym with some of the state-of-the-art equipment using Prime Fitness and many other advanced, unique gym tech to build a facility that's really like no other. Heavily influenced by a lot of the N1 education, Dan has really created a facility that, has really put you on the map. Like I would say internationally, because of Kassem doing stuff out of your place. A lot of people have seen your gym, and it's just, everyone knows you.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. It's been amazing. So, hooking up with Kassem and that, it's been, I love it because I get to meet cool people and just, people kind of know the gym because they've been here, they've done education here, which has been really, really great. But before even Kassem, our real thing was, what we wanted to do was I just wanted to create, my goal just out of the gate was to create like a really unique space. And it's funny because, I'm here every day and I love this space. Like when I come in, it still makes me really, really happy. But it's so interesting over the last couple of years, teaming up with the N1 crew and having people come from all over the place. Everyone comes in and it's like, they're always like, wow, this place is so amazing. This place is, how it looks is so cool. And it's always nice to hear those things. And I hear it from other members, but to hear it from like peers in the community, you're like, wow, maybe this place is, cooler than I give myself credit for. Maybe it, it is really kind of special because, now you get kind of validated by, not only just members, but people from all over the place coming for education. So that was pretty awesome.
Beautiful. Dan, and honestly, I can relate to that because my gym, Strata, we're 4,000 square feet, and I don't often take the time to smell the roses, and I get people that say, this is a great place. I'm like, you know what? It's not bad, but I just get too busy and get down in the dirt, and I don't really realize how beautiful the roses are.
Exactly.
So everyone that's listening, Dan has actually just finished the Fitness Pro mentorship, and he just renewed with us to continue into our leadership program to kind of focus on the next level stuff. And he's got some really cool story about his experience with FPM and why he did our mentorship. But Dan, I want to ask you first, much more like an interview side of things. Before we met, you were the owner-operator of a 7,000 square foot gym with some ridiculously state-of-the-art equipment. Where and how did you go from A to 7,000 square foot gym?
So the story is pretty interesting. So I actually was working. So Longmont is just about 15 or 20 minutes outside Boulder. So when I got out of college, or how everyone up in Canada is university, but it's college university. I started training in Boulder, and I was living in Boulder. And I really was at this gym that I just didn't. It wasn't bad. It was a small personal training gym, maybe 2,500 square feet. No community. We all rented space. And I just honestly, one of my clients who was a developer, I trained, and I just was always complaining. Oh, I wish we had this piece. I really like this thing. I don't like this space. I don't like that. And he kept telling me, oh, you need to come up to Longmont. Now, granted, Longmont for me, 15 to 17 minutes. But in Colorado, like Longmont, it's like going to the moon. Like I just didn't spend time in Longmont at the time. And so after like a year or two of him bothering me, like come up and see the space. I have a space. I think you would love it. We could start small. And I kept like blowing him off. Finally, my wife and I came up. We're like, whoa, this isn't really that far. It's a cool community. Let's try to do it. And so he said, well, what are your ideas? I said, well, my ultimate idea is for a place between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet. He said, well, look, I have a small space, but it could be yours. We could get it ready in about 3 or 4 months, but it's only about 2,000 square feet. But in the meantime, we can sit down and actually figure out what size. I have another lot, and we can build the space. So it'll take about 2 years to build that space, but I can give you something in the meantime. So I said, and my wife thought, that might be a good idea. Let's start small. We had no business background. So I came from exercise physiology, and I was just like, man, I just want to build the best, coolest thing, super nerdy side. And my wife, being practical, was like, well, let's figure out the business, like how the payments work, all the odds and ends. So we started out in 2,000 square feet. It was amazing to have our own space, started building the equipment. And then literally we had shaped up, but we wanted to end up around 7,000 square feet. And over the course of the next 2 years, we were able to very, very fortunate to work with my client and developer to kind of figure out, as we started to see clients and people come in, reality, for me, being a gym guy, I was like, give me 10,000 feet, give me 15,000 square feet. I could fill it with machines.
Sure.
But ultimately, really realistically, for the model we wanted, how much space did we really need? And starting on that small side was really nice because, I had some friends, and a friend of yours, a common friend, Tim, he was my first trainer because he was a friend. And I was like, hey man, I'm doing this thing. You want to come with me? But it kind of gave us an idea of how big a staff could we really have? How many trainers did we really want to have? How much square footage do we really need to be successful, where we weren't going to basically end up spending a ton of money on overhead? And so that year really developed, and I got really, really fortunate because basically we had this empty lot. And as the year went by, it was kind of like, well, how much we had time to kind of think 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. And after about 6 months, we had kind of settled on what we thought was going to be around 7,000 square feet was going to be our sweet spot, which wasn't like 7,000. It just per the layout we wanted and the membership we thought we could have. We got really fortunate to be able to do that. Plus, to be honest, kind of work out the kinks in the smaller space. So we opened up. And then after about 6 months, we were kind of rocking, and we were like, oh, we made the right choice. About that size would be right. And it was kind of a crazy transfer. The gym, the new space was 100 yards from where we currently were. So we basically had everybody just go, okay, guys, we're just going to slowly one day just go over to the new space. And that's kind of what happened.
And so your client built that building that you're in now?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that is the most ridiculous and lucky thing I've ever heard in the world. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, so basically every time we were done training, we'd walk over to we'd walk through the space, and he'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna do this or that." And I'm like, "Oh, can we do this instead?" So it was very hands-on. We got super, super lucky.
Incredible.
So we had worked out all the details. So I was super fortunate in basically meeting him and having him as a landlord friend tenant relationship. But it was really pretty nice because for him as a builder, he was doing stuff, and I was like, "Dude, I can't put equipment along the wall if you have this big thing jutting out. Like, it takes away my space." So we got to sit and look at the designs. And it was nice. So
Incredible.
That's really how it's going to be. Yeah.
Well, again, whoever's listening to this, check out Dan's website, the Gym at Prospect. Absolutely incredible facility, and nice to know that it was built for you. That's super cool.
It was cool. It was really, really, very fortunate in that sense.
So Dan, and that's where I'm really excited to have had you go through the mentorship program, because I know you worked with Glenn, and now I'm working with you a little bit more to work on getting your marketing infrastructure and some of the business systems you didn't have in place. If you don't mind me asking, before starting working with us, what was one of your biggest frustrations with your business?
So going back to what I said is really, I had this goal, and I call it the field of dreams mentality, where I just kind of like, if you build it, people will come. And when we first started, that kind of happened. Like, in our community, there was no big commercial gym in the space, basically in the town I was in. And I was like, man, I'm just going to fill us with the most bad, the coolest things, the most bad equipment ever, staff it well, and people are just going to show up. And it was crazy. When we opened the doors, people just came in. Like, the space looked cool and people showed up. And so we didn't really have any systems. So I basically was just like, I'm just going to train clients. People were paying me. I could charge, I was really happy coaching. Trainers were finding us. I had no systems of how to hire somebody. I had no systems how to market. I had no systems on how to teach or educate my trainers. And I had really, it's pretty sad, even sign up, just signing up somebody up, or if someone came in for a tour. I used to have someone walk in the door and I would be like, oh, let me show you around. Take no information, no way to check how they were doing. And so granted, back then, this was 11 years ago, social media wasn't in a certain place. The technology wasn't in a place. So my biggest frustration, and as we started to grow, I kept thinking, man, I wonder if I can be being more financially successful and also not work as much. But I just didn't know really who to go to and who would be able to help me with those things. And so trying to read, trying to hire someone for marketing, none of the people were in the fitness industry. So, the marketing people were like, oh, do flyers, do this. And, or try, and when social media happened, here's what you should do. And I was like, but, for a gym, what type of form should I have? Like, what should I do to hire a trainer? What should I screen out? How many clients should I be doing? How do you, all of those odds and ends, there was just no systems. So what ended up being frustrating is just being like, man, there's so many things I'm missing on. And then at the time where, unfortunately, I told you my trainer, Tim, who was like my manager, he moved on to other things. And so we had this lull where we actually started to have, people were coming in and wanting training. I had no one to give them to. I was so busy, and I had a couple trainers, but they were like, hey, we're too full. I never thought about like any of those things. And then what happened was someone walk in the door, hey, I want to ask some questions. I would be with a client. So I had no way of basically structuring any side of my business. And so I was frustrated that I didn't have that, or also I didn't know where to go to do that was specific to the fitness industry. Because all the kind of nonsense out there is like, learn business. I'm like, yeah, but learn business for what?
Yeah.
Like, for what industry? Like, I'm not a retail store that sells clothes. I'm not an online shop that sells a product. Like, where do I do that? So everyone was like, they're learning sales for the wrong industry. It's like, so that was a big hurdle for me. And that was frustrating. And I just didn't, spending money on the wrong things. It's just, that was the other big thing. I was like, try this or that. And it's not that, I tell people you have to invest, but it's like, but you don't want to invest in the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, when we first initially spoke about you working with us, you were talking about like you were paying for some paid advertising, and you had a bunch of different systems you'd put money into, and none of which were really fruitful. Could you speak to that a bit?
Yeah. So I linked up. Finally, I decided, I just need to hire somebody to run some, I thought everyone's like, oh, run Facebook, run social media ads, run some Google ads. And I was like, what? I'm the first person to speak on is I didn't know how to use any of those things very well. So I hired a guy, and he was not bad. He built a system where we started to get some automations, and it was kind of like, I think it was, a little bit appealing to me. I'm like, oh, I get something that's automated. Now, like, I can see my little ad go out on Facebook. But it was interesting, he had said that he had worked with some other gyms, but really, he was just someone that kind of like, he was certified in Facebook marketing. And so he could kind of read some of the analytics. And so initially it was weird just being out there a little bit. I saw people come in the door, but I wasn't sure if they were coming in the door because they saw the ads. I didn't have a system to be like, even just ask them, hey, how'd you find us? Can you fill out this, intake form? So I was like, but I thought just spending the money, it was like, well, now I feel good. I'm doing something. But I watched the videos. There was, he wasn't telling me how to make the right videos. What's my audience? Who, how do you customize that to who you speaking to? He's like, hey, send me 3 videos, a shot of your gym, a shot of you just saying a couple things about your gym, and we'll put it up. And then we would just look at it. Oh, it's good. It's performing good. Now it's not. So we're going to stop. And so I think I felt good initially because I thought I was being proactive and doing something. But then after like a couple months, I was like, man, I'm just throwing money down the toilet. Like, I did not get, there was very few times I was actually seeing a true conversion of like, when I asked people coming in, how'd you find us? Oh, I just saw you driving by. No one was seeing the ads and coming in. So at that point I was like, man, I gotta do something different. This is just silly. So, it really was interesting to see what happened.
Well, your mentor, Mr. Glenn Owen is here, and he says, Dan has been blowing up. Consistency over time equals results. And I mean, that's the nice thing about you is because you'd put so much work and energy in. I mean, you were kind of like a pimple ready to pop. We just needed to point you in the right direction to make sure that the results went the right way. The thing that, is, in this industry, it's so thick that there's so many companies that say they're marketing companies and sales companies, and they want to drive you either to paid advertising, pay a ton of money for that. And there's one other student who worked with us, and he got over 150 leads, but none of them became clients. They give you a ton of leads, but the quality is low. Or they want to transition part of your business to online. Like, now online training is the next big thing. But finding that schism in between that focuses on personal training and this expert status that you're looking for and many of our students are looking for, there's no one doing that. And you've crushed everything we've shared. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. is like you said, they promise all of these leads. But I remember asking another company I interviewed, I was like, okay, well, if I get 150 leads, what does that mean if none of them buy any of my services?
100%.
Right. So it's like, yeah. So that was the other frustrating part for sure.
So what would you say has been the biggest change in your professional world since working with FPM?
That's a big question. But I would say the thing that I needed from FPM was, I'm super, super busy. And, you have kids, I have a daughter, I have a wife, and I love to coach. The hardest thing for me is the love of coaching and the constant learning. Like, with N1, I would just spend all my time educating myself, just more mechanics, more biomechanics, more deep science. I'd get more certifications, and all that stuff is really important, guys. And I'm not saying don't do that, please.
Yeah.
It's super, super important. But it was like, one of the things that you had said was it was like a distraction. Like, instead of making tasks where it's like, well, what's your goal? If your goal is to build your business, you need to set aside time, just like your education time. And so I would do that, but I would feel very disjointed because I wouldn't know what to do in a week. So I like have my big whiteboard, write down some stuff, and then I would kind of do like little pieces of everything, but and nothing really got done because I kind of didn't know what to do or how to do it. So I ended up never getting further. So like when I started with FPM, just having that like, hey, here's what we're going to do. This is week 1. Here's the information we're presenting. Then here's your homework. And it sounds so silly, but like, I don't know why I didn't think about it originally, but look, we all have had coaches. I've had, for bodybuilding or even strength training, and have someone write my programs, or mentors that taught me more, that gave me homework. I needed the same thing in business, right? And so for me, just that was made all the difference. So having the right information and just having like, hey, this week, here's what we're going to do. How'd it go? Oh, that didn't work. Okay, well, let's try this. Or, hey, that worked great. Okay, now we're going to do this. And so just having that written out and having that structure, I finally was getting things done, right? Because I could focus on one thing, right? And so then as I built that up, it became a flow between you and Glenn of like, okay, here are the things you're going to do. And then all I would do is just block time in my schedule to do those things. And then it all got done. And then you start to see this pattern. So the first week, I know some of the answers long-winded. The first week when I spoke to Brandon's like, hey, go on your website. You should probably put up some new testimonials and redo your intro video because people don't understand what you're about. So I literally the next day went in, I got asked 2 of my like key demographic clients, which we also talked about, like who are you trying to bring in? And I took 2 new testimonials, created a testimonial section so it's easier to find on my website. And I just recorded in 60 seconds what my gym was about. And it was me, took me 20 tries because was horrible speaking on camera. And I posted it on the website. And within the first week, we got inquiries about training and about membership, just because when people were landing on our site, they just understood what we were about really, really quickly. And so it was like, oh, okay. But like they gave me the assignment. I went and did it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that was, I just knew what to do. So there was more confidence around that. And then that's how it's been in each of all the weeks. So that was the key.
I love it. I mean, honestly, and then the messages I'm getting from you, like you've consistently, it seems like, have been getting at least 2 to 4 clients per week, depending on the week, in a variety, just between cold leads, not like cold leads reaching out to you, and then also doing different conversion events. I mean, you've been crushing it.
Yeah. And just one of the ththings that I did, which I think was key too, is one of my first phone calls with Glenn was I just needed to get more organized. So, and the funny thing was, it wasn't like the way Glenn presented the information, and which I appreciate, there was no judgment aside. Like, dude, how'd you get this far? And you've never done these things. Like, it was like, hey, okay, cool, man. Here's what we're going to do. He's like, why don't you make a list of all of the active and inactive clients you have? And another homework assignment is, why don't you just call some of the inactives? Like, do you have a list? I'm like, no. So I made a list. And the other thing I did was I just called a bunch of people that I knew loved training, but I just haven't seen them in a while. Stuff happens.
Yep.
So like within the first week, I got like 3 people to come back in. It's like, oh gosh, you're right. I kind of stuff happened. I haven't been working out and blah, blah, blah. Or, one of my trainers that had a couple people, clients left. So like right out of the gate, just making like a bunch of phone calls that took me like an hour, 3 people came back. And then between that and the website, the first month, I think we had like 6 new clients, like right out of the gate. And so then I was like, oh, maybe organization and having like pockets where I can keep track of everything makes more sense. And the nice thing with Glenn was, and again, was he knew like I'm busy, so I couldn't do like a lot all at once. So we just had tasks. Okay, why don't you start making an inactive client list and keep that, and you can add or subtract as that goes. So I did that. I made the calls in the same week. That worked. Then the next structure is, hey, how can we organize if someone's interested in training? They don't have to call you. And I was like, oh, maybe I should make a form on the website. Then all of a sudden I did that. I got more inquiries because instead of people not wanting to call, people just submitted like, yeah, I'm interested. And we would call them back and we'd have them come in. And like, so there was not even a system when they came in, but just having that one thing on the website had more people. And then the thing is, for me, is like doing the seminars, I think people have a love-hate with that. And I think it's one of those things where it's like people want to do all of these things to drive business. But then when it comes down to the things that they kind of don't want to do or it's hard, they're like, there's got to be a better way, but there's just not. So like then I did my first seminar, like the first month of FPM. And then we got another 4 clients. Just like people like, Glenn's like, yeah, don't worry, man, just like blast it everywhere. And so I put it on like all different types of emails, went and talked to like a whole bunch of people within my community, put flyers up. And then all of a sudden we just got a bunch of new people that had never been in the gym that saw us on like a community email. Some of my old members that were no longer members, they saw it. And I was like, I was super worried. I'm like, no one's going to show up. I'm going to talk to like 0 people. And we got 10 people. 4 people ended up coming back and converting into clients. And I was like, oh my God. So like between the first like 6 weeks, I think we got like, it was like 10 clients.
That's awesome.
And so like my training went like boom. And so now I had trainers that weren't so busy that became like part-time that are now like full-time.
That's awesome.
And so having the tasks and having the systems, I think was the biggest key. So those are the things that what I really wanted. I just didn't know how to do it. So
well, I love what you're sharing because I mean, whenever I talk to anybody who wants to make a change in their career, they're always like, well, I'm worried about the expense of the thing. This thing's gonna be expensive. Well, what you're saying already is like the number of people you acquired paid for your investment of the program, like pretty much right off the bat. And then
easy.
Time-wise, everyone's like, well, I'm not sure I'm gonna have enough time for this. Well, you're a busy guy with kid and a gym and training, and you were able to sneak a couple hours in triage and still get those 10 clients in the first 6 weeks.
Yep.
So time and money, yeah.
Yeah, time and money. But it was interesting too, is like one of the other exercises that we did together, which I thought was super helpful, is we basically looked at all the time I spent and all the hours I spent on each thing. And then from them, the thing that Glenn also told me was like, I just had to be better prioritizing. Some of the things that I would try to do just didn't matter.
Yeah.
So like having a task, like to be honest, perfect example, I'm not a tech guy. So this is silly. I'll give you an example from this week. One of the new assignments I have is I want to get better at making assessment forms. I've never done a good assessment. I've never done a good intake. So I want to have the forms ready. We spoke about this the other day. So I'm working on it. So the other day I was super tempted. So I go on Vistaprint and I'm like, I want to make a Gym at Prospect folder. Just a nice folder with the logo. Everyone can be on there. So I go on to Vistaprint and I start doing the thing. And all of a sudden I can see how long this is going to take. And I'm like, man, I'm not good at this. Is this the best use of my time? Or should I work on my new assessment form, which I can print out, even if it's not great, that my trainers can use later today or tomorrow? The folder doesn't matter. So I stopped and I started figuring out how I wanted to do my assessments, and I have built some more of the form. So instead of wasting an hour on a folder, it was one of those things like I could hear Glenn being like, what do you need to do that's going to make a change in your business now? I was like, don't do that. Do what's important. And that's why it was so key, because with the homework assignments, like I have my sheet, like I'll show everybody. This is the notes I took with Brandon yesterday. Like these are like my tasks I got to do, my assessment, right? And so it was sitting right on my desk, and I'm like, that's more important. So having that and focusing on the right things for me, even though I was busy, but what was I busy doing? I have my clients. So like, I looked at it, I'm like, man, I got 25 clients a week. I work out, say 2 hours a day. I'm like, where are the other hours? And I'm like, I would try to do stuff that never really ended up with putting dollars in my pocket. And so now I look at everything every day of like, okay, what's the most important to get done? But if there's extra time, I'll do that. Like literally, it's great today. I got all my stuff done. I got to finish building my form. But now I'm going to go back and look at the folder because I have a lot. I can do it if I get this other thing done, which has been the best thing for me. Yeah.
I love it, man. So listen, there's a few people that we have talked to that are going to work with us eventually, but there's a lot of people who are thinking about hiring a mentor and they just have never had one, or they know they need to work with one, but they're maybe just sitting on the pot before getting started. If you were going to say something to anyone who's like waffling on the idea of hiring a business mentor, what would you say to them?
It was probably one of my regrets I didn't do earlier, because I would probably, gosh, in the amount of money I spent on ads alone was probably almost comparable to what the whole FBM program was worth. And literally, I made no money from the ads. Like, no money, no consistent lead generations or anything. There's no system I have to take away from those ads. And, it's one of those things where it's like, it's, I think everybody's worried about the money aspect, but it's really like, if you have to invest if you don't want to be in the same place in a year, 6 months, 2 months. And so I think for me, yeah, the best thing I can say is, like, think about it this way: everyone out there, if they're a personal trainer, you spent your money on training. I don't know how many of you, I wouldn't take that back. There's probably better certifications that some of you like, but you had to do that to become a trainer. So if you want to be good at business, you have to do business course of some kind. And the thing is, like, you can't go to a university and do like, oh, I'm going to take statistics and learn business. You have to do it with per your line of work. So what FPM's done is basically said, oh, great, here's an education in business of how to grow your business for your specific and for the training industry. And it's not an online, razzle dazzle, trying to do all this marketing stuff. It's like, hey, all of us are in-person coaches for the most part. I know I am. Or whether, and the applicability is it's immediate carryover from first day to the last day. I use every single thing. I did everything, and everything just built on each other. So if I went back, I wish I would have saved a ton of money, and I don't know how much more money I could have made. And again, I talk to a lot of people, for all of us, yes, we love helping people, but in reality, we want to support ourselves. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to be able to retire. I want to be able to, have more time to do stuff with my family. And one of the things that I told Glenn was, when we started, I was working Saturdays. I was working 6 days a week. So since I started, my goal was to not work Saturdays, and I don't work Saturdays.
Love it.
The only time I work on a Saturday, I told Glenn, I said, hey man, here's my average per hour rate. Here's how many sessions I do. I don't want to work on Saturdays. And so I have some savings. I'm not going to do it and see what happens. And literally within the first month, I was already making that money and more on Saturdays. And then I can make all the money I spent on FBM back. And my life is significantly better. And I'm more happy coming to work every Monday because I actually have more days where I'm not in the gym. It's way, way better. So the quality of life is so much better. So I know people hear all that, but I cannot tell you like the sustainability. And now I'm even more productive because I have more time away from my business, that I can actually feel hungry to do more stuff. Where before I'm like, ugh, I was just here. I don't really want to do that. Ugh, I just want to get my clients done, and I don't have time.
I love it, man. You know, the thing that you're saying, I've heard you say a couple of times, and we've talked about it in some of our advertising for FPM, but like going through the season of studying exercise science and being a gigantic exercise nerd, and that is such a pinnacle part. I mean, in wintertime, you need to wear winter jackets in Canada, and you need to shovel snow, and there are particular things you need to do in that season, and you do need that tool set. But at the same time, in the summer, you need to know how to take care of your skin. You need to know how long you can be in the sun for. You also need to know how to make money. And the thing that you've done really well, and I still see many people struggling with, it just grinds my gears, is there's so much brilliant academic information out there, and it's more prevalent now than there was 10 years ago. Because when I was first getting into this, and same with you, there was only a few companies teaching anything, and now you can learn pretty much anything from anybody. I mean, what Evan Pycon's teaching, and there's just ridiculous access to information. But if you don't have a career, it doesn't matter. Like, you need to be able to pay for food, your car, and a house. And if you're not going to be able to retire when you're 55 or 60, what are you doing?
Yeah. And it's also too, like, I think a lot of us, even for me, it's like a distraction, because like you love learning all of those things, and you're like, it's so funny for me. Like, I tell people, well, you're super happy spending $4,000, $5,000 on an education certification and getting smarter, but then you're not going to figure out how to be successful in your business. So now you can be the smartest guy in your community, but you don't have any clients because you have no idea for people to see you. How do you get them? Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the big thing. And also you will burn out, like also too, like you will just be exhausted trying to do just volume of people.
So Dan, on that note, what is something inspirational or motivating you would say to a trainer who's struggling in their career right now?
I think all of us have been there in some sense. Some of us have been luckier in our careers, and we fell into the right things in right places. But in terms of inspiration, it's if you find the right people that really care about making you better, those are the mentors and people you want. So if you think of like FBM, when I speak to Glenn or I speak to you, it's like there's a level of empathy and also sincerity in wanting your people to do better. Just like most of my clients, I severely want to change their life. I want to help them in any way I can. And some of the success, and if you guys are out there listening as trainers, probably some of the success you've had is people, they read that off you. It's not a sales, you're trying to get money, you really want to help. So in reality, find the people that you can trust. And I think that's the big part of why I didn't jump into business courses, is because I had a lot of trust for these educators in the biomechanics community. Like I said, wow, I trust that they're that smart. But I had no trust on the business side. I didn't find someone mentorship wise. I'm like, you know what? Do they really know what they're talking about? Do they really care about my business? So you have to surround yourself with those people. You have to involve yourself in those people. Otherwise, really, like I said, if you're going to continue to struggle because you have nobody to learn from. And none of us can get away with not having good mentors in our lives, whether it's on business or on the trainer education side. You need to have both. And so one of the things that I wish I would have done earlier is find a business mentor. All my mentors were all in the field of education. And they're smart people and they did well in business, but I never made them a business mentor. So I never surrounded myself with good business people that really cared. They weren't trying to make a quick buck. And so that's something that I think is super important, to have good people and surround yourself with people that know more than you do and care about how well you do. Because if they don't care, then they're not good mentors anyways.
No, they're just people taking your cash.
Yes.
So Dan, I mean, thank you so much. And it's been really an honor having you be a part of this podcast and our mentorship. And I'm really excited to see the next level of things that you do. My last question for you is a nerdy one. You have one of the most badass gyms in North America, in my opinion. What is your favorite piece of machinery you have right now?
Oh,
I know.
one. Oh God, it's a tough one.
Whatever the season is this week, don't worry about it. What is it this week that's you're standing out to you?
This week it's been like that for a little bit, and I have to give Coach Kassem credit for this one. It's probably my Atlantis Pro Hack Squat. It's if you guys don't know Kassem Hanson, he's designed some pieces of equipment and designed one for Atlantis. It is a hack squat. But the way the hack squat works is it also not only does it as a hack, it has an adjustable seat pad to actually put you in hip flexion. And he made beautiful reverse band pegs where the pans go across these rollers. So it's the resistance profile is super linear and the platform adjusts for plantar and dorsiflexion. And to be honest, I love it because I love it myself, because I love, like, I could crank out and just crush down quads wherever I want. But my clients, the members, are so happy. It is so smooth, and people, from the people that want to come in and smash to the people that are like, oh my God, I have bad knees. I can't do squatting motions. They're like, this is the smoothest thing. It makes me so happy to watch them get on it. And they're just like, it's hilarious. We had a woman who has Parkinson's. She's tons of issues. The machine is huge and intimidating. It's super scary. She literally came up to me the other day and was like, I love that new machine. It's scary, but I love it. Like, and it was like, she works with a trainer, and like, she was so happy because she could do that exercise. Then on the other side of the curve, I got this one guy who, is typical kind of, bro type of a guy who's like, this is great, man. I got an old injury in my knee. And I could finally go real heavy with the reverse bands. So I think that's for right now is my favorite.
That's awesome. Honestly, Kassem reached out to me when he was selling the first 20, and we just don't have the space for it. And if we expand, I'm getting one right away because it just looks badass. It looks incredible.
It's awesome. It's big. It's a big footprint, but definitely recommend.
Cool. Well, Dan, listen, man, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all of your commitment to this industry. Thanks for being a part of FPM, and thanks for really just being an awesome human in general.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me, and thank you for all the work you've done with me. And I get excited, for all our calls, and I'm excited to continue working with you guys and all the next stuff for you. Again, Brandon did mention that I'm doing the one-on-one mentorship after FPM. And so that's still really exciting because now I'm even more excited because now we're doing like more cool stuff.
Bigger and better, man.
I'm better. Yes, yes. So thanks for having me. Thanks for being awesome. Thanks for helping all the trainers out there, including myself. It's been definitely life changing in the right direction for where I finally want to be going. So again, that's been crucial for me.
Dan, thank you so much. And if anyone's listening to this in the future, we're going to be doing this mentorship for a long time. We want to help trainers like you have the career you deserve, a lot like Dan. And if you are just starting out with no clients, or you got a gym like Dan and you want to level up to the next level, I'd love to try and help you out. So please let me know and we can set up a time to chat and we can see if we can help in any way possible. But Dan, have an awesome day, man. Go enjoy your time with your family.
Thanks, bud. You too. Thanks, B.